What's up, boys and girls? Welcome back to another edition of They Live. We had a really bad week this week, boys and girls. I'm not going to lie about it. MMA was not good. We're going to go over a little bit of that, but we're going to also go. I'm on this like trend. If I have, which is rare that I have like a really bad week in MMA, but even though I don't consider it that bad, the optics of what we did was just off. You know, we got the main event wrong, obviously, Topuria and Max Holloway. You guys know that I came in and I said, look, these lines are way off. Like, there's a lot of value on the dogs. And I got to be honest with you that I would do this again if the card happened tomorrow. Like, I would still take these odds. I still see, like, a lot of value on Holloway. I still see a lot of value on Whitaker. So call me crazy because they got washed. Holloway didn't get washed. Holloway, actually, to me, I thought, you know, it was a very competitive fight. He got caught. Topuria, got to be sold on this kid at this point. But we did dump that one. We also missed on Whitaker. Chimaev, like I said, it was a dominant victory. Broke his jaw with that crank. Amazing, you know, amazing. Both of these guys, you could kind of see a little bit of a changing of a guard now, right? You see like what kind of Dana White is trying to do here. They're very calculated. These guys are not going anywhere. Max Holloway's not going anywhere. Whitaker's not going anywhere. But you could kind of see now a little bit of a changing of a guard coming into January, coming into the new year. They're going to have this whole year now to kind of market these guys, you know, coming up in 2025. Ankalaev and Rakic, we that was a bright spot for us. I said that fight was going to be uber competitive. Now you guys kind of see why they kind of shy away from Ankalaev. He's just boring. I mean, he's a boring fighter. He's a very good fighter, but he's a boring fighter. So competitive fight, but he did win the fight, but we did hit that with the plus 3.5. Murphy and Ige, another spot where we just thought Murphy was just more athletic and better, and he proved it. There were just situations in that fight where athletically he just moved. Magomedov and Petrosian was competitive until it wasn't anymore. Jeff Neal and RDA, the same thing with the athleticism. We just figured RDA, you know, fighting a guy like Jeff Neal with that kind of power. I didn't expect it to end like that. I figured it would go very deep. But, you know, when Jeff Neal is on, Jeff Neal is somebody that you don't want to fight. Like, that's just the bones about it. Rebecki and Oralbai was an amazing fight. That fight was absolutely amazing. I mean, the way Oralbai, I actually, even in a loss, I gained more respect for him. Not only for the fact that I think he's a good fighter, but I gained respect for him just the damage. Like, how did this guy survive? I mean, his eye was, obviously had a big orbital issue. The fight could have been stopped at one point. Kudos to the ref for letting it go. But the way he survived, the way he stormed the back like that just showed like real primal instinct. So great fight. Kudos to Rebecki. Ferreira, Magomedov, another good fight. Barnett and Njoku. Something happened with Barnett's leg, I believe, where he got injured, but you kind of knew that. So the card was good. Like, we had fun. It was a fun card. But from a wagering perspective, we did go down minus 2.8 units, which is not a lot. If coming into this, the optics that I just told you, you were like, oh, he's probably went down like 10 units. 2.8 units, nothing big. And we ended up getting it right back with football. And then some on both ends of the spectrum, with wagering and with DFS. We had Marvin Harrison over 45.5 receiving, hit that. Elijah Moore over 28.5. I've been telling everybody Elijah Moore was going to have a big game. He ended up having his biggest game of the year, 8 receptions, 85 yards. Devontae Smith over 55.5 yards. We hit a parlay, Bills and Chiefs. We hit the Niners -5. So the wagering was clean that up completely and then some. Then on the DFS end of it, between me and D-Rock and the roster bully, I mean, the roster bully loved Elijah Moore. Awesome value play. He was only 2% owned. We also had in the slate breaker section, we had Kittle and Cousins, which Cousins threw for 4 TDs. Kittle had a monster day. We had caution tape as a sit for Tyreek Hill, which came out because he underperformed. We had Zay Flowers and Josh Jacobs as a must start, which they overperformed. And D-Rock's biggest advocate was Cedric Tillman, and he had two TDs, had a great spot. I'm not two TDs. He had that monster bomb near the end of the game that kind of brought you over the top if you rostered him. And he was also on Mostar as a pivot off of Achan. Didn't have the yardage, didn't have the mileage, but he did have 2 touchdowns that he vultured. So overall, Saturday, like I said, not our greatest night, but Sunday we had a really great day with everybody. Marangelli, everybody. We all D-Rock too with his wagers went to the bonus. So came in on Saturday, took a little bit of a smack on the ass, and then we came back Sunday. We gave a smack on the ass back, and we collected some money in the process. So overall, a good weekend if you're going from the totality of it. But now we move on. Let me take a sip of my water. I had to go to the urgent care today. I had to get my ear irrigated. So Anthony went, he's like, you got to go to urgent care. They'll flush it out. So they did. I was in there. They even gave me a stick. The nurses gave me a sticker because I was a good patient. Anyway, if I'm talking a little loud, guys, that's probably why, because I'm deaf right now. But if I'm talking too silent, and you can let me know in the comments. Anyway, good card ahead. Okay, we got Brandon Moreno Albazi as the main event. I do have a lot to say about this one. Also, Erin Blanchfield, which is my hometown girl. I lived in a town that was 2 square miles. Erin Blanchfield represents that. I've been following her for a very long. Not only her, believe it or not, that town has produced some very good combat sports athletes, women. Danielle Kelly, who's a superstar Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu player, is also training in the same area. And Erin Blanchfield is obviously from my area. So that's got a lot to say about that. They got big boys, Derek Lewis and Denise. You got some really good fights on this board. You got Mallet coming back to fight Giles. You got Zahabi versus Munoz, which is a really good fight. Jourdain and Henry. Shore versus Zalal, who's on a tear right now. Great fight. Romanov and Nascimento. Armfield is back. Just a good fun card. It's a fun card. Not loaded with names, but it's a very fun card. And I actually, believe it or not, I see the value of this card a little bit better as far as number-wise. The numbers in the last card it was just hard for me to pass up. Like, I knew I was taking a chance, but they were just too hard for me to pass up. Like, I would hate myself if I didn't take shots. And the reason why the number was so low, the reason why we didn't lose a lot, was because I took small shots on them. I'm very realistic. I'm not the type of guy that's going to come out and say, max unit, 5-unit bet, and guaranteed they're not even playing that. I tell you exactly what I play. So if I'm doing a half a unit bet, I'm going to tell you guys it's only a half a unit. So if you put a half a unit down to win a unit, awesome. So that's why we didn't take a hit. You know what I mean? We took usually guys that make believe that they're betting a lot, like 5, 10, 15, 30 units, 40 units on a card. They'll lose one bet and it won't even be 2.8. It'll be like 7 units. We 2.8 the entirety of the card because we played very conservative. So this one, the main event, you got Moreno and Albazi. I'm not going to go through the whole main card. There's 14 fights on this card. I'm going to go through the top 3, and then I'll pick 1 or 2 from the card that I personally really like. Moreno and Albazi, obviously the main event we're going to cover. This is an interesting fight for me because, a lot of people are high on Albazi, and I do like Albazi. I think he's a really good fighter, but I do have to ask you guys a question. Do you really believe that he deserves to be in this spot? And if you look at his resume on paper, yes, he does. You look at, he beat Gordon, he beat Zumagulov, he beat Figueiredo's brother, Francisco Figueiredo, he beat Costa, and then he beat KKF. So he's on a 5-fight win streak since he's came into the UFC. So on paper, absolutely, he deserves to be in the spot. But I would be remiss if I'm not going to bring up the KKF fight, which I watched 2 times last night. He lost that fight. He shouldn't have won that fight. If you look at the numbers on that fight and you look at everything that happened in that fight, I find it very, very hard to give it to Albazi. I really do believe KKF won that fight. And I watched it twice for a reason, because I watched it the first time and I had it for KKF. And obviously, when it was live, I thought the same thing. But then, you let it go, whatever. So now I was like, all right, now I got to watch this fight again. I had it for him. I took a little bit of a break. I got something to eat. I, watched a little news, and then I said, now let me go back and watch it again. And I did. I didn't watch it back to back. I let it sit, and then I watched it again about an hour later, and the same result. Like, I had it for KKF again. So 3 times in a row, live, and the 2 times I rewatched it, I could not give it to Albazi. So there's certain times where I do watch it and I'm like, well, you can give him this and you can give him that and let's watch it again. And yeah, you know what? Yeah, I couldn't for this. Like, I had KKF winning this fight. I really do believe he won this fight. So technically, if in my perspective, they did judge this fight correctly, Albazi's probably not in this spot, right? So I do like him as a fighter. I think he's a talented kid. I do think he's a little bit low volume for me. And he does tend to fade in the 4th and 5th round. He does tend to slow up. I've noticed that in the fight, too. A couple of his fights, but especially in the Moreno fight, after he went for that submission attempt, he kind of blew his wad at one point. And the 4th and 5th round, you just seen the difference in movement. You've seen the difference in, KKF just looked a little sharper. He looked a little sharper in there. So now you go on the flip side and you go to, and another thing that I noticed about this is take this for what you will. People are looking at Albazi kind of as like the new blood coming in, right? Like, Moreno's been around for a while. Second stint in the UFC, was a champion, all those fights with Figgy. It seems like he's been around forever. He's actually 1 year younger than Albazi, which is bizarre, right? But we go by the track record of how old are you in the cage, not so much your numerical age, because obviously fighter age is almost like dog years. Like if you have a dog that's 10 years old, what does that equate to? What is every year in a dog, Mackenzie? Do you know what every year in a dog is? It's 7. So that's the way we kind of equate fighters the same thing. You can't go by the numerical age. You got to go by the war-torn age. So he's been through a lot of wars. But when you look at the guys as he's fought, they're all top level. He beat Figueiredo. He beat KKF. He beat Figueiredo again. He lost to Pantoja. He lost to Royval. The Royval fight was very, very close. Royval actually thought he lost that fight. If you watch that fight again and you see them in the center of the cage, it was a split decision, and Royval thought he lost. And then when they announced his name, he kind of jumped up like, oh, my God, I can't believe it. So that fight could have went either way. So technically, like, depending on which way you scored it, you had the fight for him or you had it for Royval, and he could be sitting on, a 4-1 record in his last 5. But the last 2 guys he lost to are like literally championship level. Both of these guys are top of the heap. The thing with this fight for me is the grappling of Albazi. I think that his striking is good. He's got good pop in his hands, but he really is a 1-2 striker. He's a guy who looks to pop you the 1-1-2, 1. You'll never see him throw combinations. You'll never see him throw 1-2-3, 1-2-3. You'll never see him throw combinations in 3s and 4s and punches and bunches, we call it. He likes to throw 1 shot, 2 shots, 1 shot, 2 shots, where Brandon Moreno, even though he's not super high volume, he throws a little bit more punches. He throws more punches and bunches. So to me, like in a 5-round fight, in 25 minutes, in a fight where a guy tends to fade a little bit, you got a guy in Moreno who is extremely durable. He's not going to be afraid to march you down. And he's also got very good grappling. He's got very, very good grappling. So, is Albazi going to be able to get control on him if he does take him down? They both average the same exact thing on takedowns, 1.74, 1.71. So, Brandon Moreno, 0.3 edge there. Takedown accuracy, you got Moreno at 46. You got Albazi at 33. Takedown defense, you got Moreno at 63 and you got Albazi at 40. So you could say all you want that Albazi's the one who needs to kind of take this to the ground. But Moreno takes this to the ground as well, which we haven't really seen that trend with him lately, even though that was a big thing for him in the past. He might have the edge actually on the ground. So then at what point in time do you say, well, Albazi's got a clear edge here? Does he have a clear edge in being the fresher fighter? Yes. Does he have a clear edge in less damage and stuff like that? Absolutely. But he doesn't have the edge to me in striking. He doesn't have the edge in conditioning. His durability could equate to that, but we haven't seen it yet. And Moreno has shown us no ability to have anything less than elite durability. And the grappling. I mean, Moreno is an extremely good grappler. He puts himself in bad positions sometimes, but ultimately he finds his way out. So, I don't think Moreno's ready. I don't think Albazi's ready right now for someone like Moreno. I think it's going to be a really good fight. I think it's going to be a competitive fight, but I think when dog comes to dog, I think Moreno is going to be the one to come out on top on this one. So I'm going to go Moreno. I'm going to go Moreno by decision. I wouldn't be shocked if Moreno ends up at some point in time finishing this fight. He utilizes all his weapons very well. If you watch the fight against KKF came forward, hit him with a couple good shots, stunned him, and he came back with a liver kick that just kind of folded him. Like, so there's certain attacks that Moreno has that no matter how durable you are, no matter when, if he catches you with them, he could shut you down. So I do like Moreno here. I think he's going to be a little bit more rejuvenated. There were some spots where we have seen Moreno look a little tired. Not tired as far as conditioning, but just look like he needs a break. Like, he's been in these wars. He needs a break. He needs some fresh scenery. And I think maybe now's the time he comes back and he looks like he can make another run. So I'm going to go Moreno here. I'm going to go Moreno by a decision, but like I said, possibly a late stoppage. Next one. Blanchfield and Namajunas. This is a really good fight for Blanchfield, and I think this is the perfect time. Now, it doesn't mean she's going to win, but I think this is the perfect time for her to get Namajunas, because when you get somebody like Rose, who is I mean, let's face it, she's a pinnacle of, when you think of great female champions, you think of, Amanda Nunes you think of Rose Namajunas you think of Rose. Rose is up there when you think of great women fighters historically, right? But what happens when you get a younger fighter like Erin that's going to come in and fight an older fighter like Rose that has a great name, but they kind of take a little bit of a tilt? It looks like a passing of a torch fight, right? So you'll have guys like Tony Ferguson. You'll have guys, I remember when Mike Tyson fought Larry Holmes, and Mike Tyson got on the microphone. He's like, it's great to have the name on the record. He's like, but we know this would have been a different fight if Larry Holmes was in his prime. So, yeah, it's nice to have the name on the record. It's nice to have the name on the record, but, from the diehard fan that looks at it, will say, well, they were washed. The reason why I'm saying she's getting Namajunas at a perfect time is because Namajunas isn't going this way. She hasn't gone this way. She's right here. Soon she will start to decline. Soon she will. But right now she hasn't. She's on a 3. She lost to Esparza. She lost to Manning. She comes back. She beats Hebus, which is a fight that me and Anthony were at in Vegas. She looked fantastic. And then she beats Cortez. So she's kind of on this up and down, but now she's on the win streak. She's not on a losing streak. She's not on the other side of it where, say, she's facing her now when Hebus faced her, where if Hebus would have beat her, yeah, it would have looked good, but we would have said, well, this could be her decline. She's on a 2-fight losing streak. Now she just lost a third. So she lost her 2. She got 2 contenders out of the way, Hebus and Cortez, where we were on her for both of them. And now she's fighting Erin Blanchfield on a 2-fight win streak. So if Erin Blanchfield does beat her, it could be kind of a sneaky win, because you got a Rose Namajunas is kind of, you're still kind of wondering about. She looks really good right now, but she's beating good competition. So if she beats her, it ages really well for her. But it's also a situation where Rose could still be extremely dangerous, and she could be getting a second wind right now. So it's kind of a double-ended sword here, right? So when you look at Erin Blanchfield, and I look at this matchup, there's no doubt in my mind that Erin Blanchfield has a lot of holes. And like I said, this is a girl who is from my hometown. I've watched her grow. I've followed her career, as short as it is. And I could tell you how great she is in certain things, and I could tell you what she needs to patch up. And obviously we know her grappling is very good. It's very slick. It's very instinctual. Which means that she doesn't really think. She doesn't need to think a lot. She does everything off instinct and feel, and that's how you know a really good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu player. It's when they're not thinking. They can think on their feet. They can think on the fly. They have a whole bag of transitions that they can go through, and that's Erin Blanchfield. She has answers for everything. Another big plus in her corner is that she is extremely durable. This is a girl who, as much as if she was my girlfriend or she was my sister or something like that, it's like I wish she didn't have that in her. But as a coach, you want that. Like, as a coach, you want that. You want somebody who's not going to care if they're cut, bloody, gouged, down 3 rounds. They are going to go in there and they're going to jump into the fire, and they're going to take 5 to land 1. And that's what kind of has been winning her fights for a long time. Her skill, but her ability to say, listen, I'm going to get what I want from hell and high water. It doesn't matter if I got to take a beating to get it. I'm going to get inside on you. I'm going to figure out how to inside trip you, how to take you down. And once I get you to the down on the ground, then you're in my world. So that's the one thing, two things that work very cohesive and in concert with each other with her. The bad thing with her is that her striking is not very good. It's a little bit too rudimentary for this level for me. And her overall wrestling game isn't that good. She doesn't have a lot of setups. Okay, she kind of just uses her bully ways to kind of get in on you and lay hands on you and try to ragdoll you to the ground. And that works for a certain extent. That works on the regional circuit. That works with the lower level MMA. But once you get to a level, the Rose Namajunas and stuff like that, where they know how to counter those things don't work anymore. You have to find pathways. You have to find tunnels and avenues to detour off of, to kind of get into on their hips, to find your inside trips, to find new entrances. You can't just utilize it. They've seen it before. They've seen all this before. And when you look at the Rose side now, what does she do well? Everything. Rose does everything well. I mean, there's not many holes in Rose Namajunas' game. There's really, really not. She's an extremely slick striker. She is a very good grappler. She's very intelligent in the cage. She's very content where she is in her career. She's got a lot of confidence in herself. Sometimes she doesn't. Rose can be broken, not inside the cage. She could kind of be broken outside of the cage. If she has personal disturbances in her life, she will bring that into the cage. It's been a known fact with her for years. She will talk herself off a ledge sometimes, even when she's coming into the cage. If you ever hear her when she's coming in, she talks to herself, I'm the best. Like, she kind of talks herself into the fight. But there are times where she's having personal issues, whether it's with Pat Barry, or just, depression issues herself. Like when the whole thing with the Connor on the bus happened, she was crying. She was like, they had to kind of will her back into it. So she does have that ability to kind of walk into the cage with a broken glass. But if she's in there and she's dialed in, like, you don't break Rose. Like, you have to knock her out. You have to submit her. You have to outwork her. She doesn't break within the fight, the walls of the fight. She breaks outside of the cage, and she'll bring that inside. And that's what'll affect her, her game. But, the way I'm looking at this fight, I can't see a world where Erin Blanchfield hasn't patched up some holes. Now, when you look at her and you look at some of the girls that she's fought, JJ Allredge, a very tricky fighter, like very tricky. Not a great fighter, but JJ is a very, very solid fighter. So when she beat JJ Allredge, that was very, very impressive to me because she's a good striker. JJ Allredge's got good takedown defense. She's a solid fighter. When she beat Molly McCann, wasn't impressed with that. Like, I'm not impressed with anybody who beats Molly McCann. Molly McCann is nothing but a striker with no takedown defense. She beat Jessica Andrade. I was extremely impressed by that. When she beat Talia Santos, I was extremely impressed by that because Talia Santos, I thought, would give her an issue because she's also a bully. She's also a big bully in there, and she was able to bully the bully. Then when she fought Manning, I was a little bit more nervous because you're getting not so much of a bully, but you're getting somebody who she doesn't give a shit. Man, if she will just walk into the fire with you, she will take what you give her and she will just fire back. And I just said, she's such a clean striker and she's so violent when she does attack. What happens if Erin can't take her to the ground? And I think that I don't want to say that Erin was drinking her Kool-Aid a little bit, but I think this fight was very good for her. I think she needed this fight to show her, look, wow, like, I need to work on my striking and my wrestling a lot more than I thought. Like, I can't do this with these level of girls like I was doing to Molly McCann and the people on a regional circuit. They're kind of hip to my game now. They know that I'm a very good grappler. They know that my striking is a little rudimentary. They know my wrestling's not that good. So they just need to keep me on the feet, and they're in this fight. So I find it very hard to believe that she did not go and fix this. And I just think that there's going to be a situation where Rose is going to be, she's going to have distance. She's going to have space. She's going to be able to tag her at range. She's going to be able to do all these things, but I think eventually Erin's going to be able to ground this fight. And I think if she does ground this fight, she's going to have that confidence to do it again and do it again. Rose ultimately does not hit that hard. You know what I mean? She doesn't hit like a Talia Santos, or she ultimately does it. She knows how to find spots, though. She'll land a nasty head kick on you. She got nasty head kicks. Like, she knows how to land shots right on the button to put you out. But ultimately, she does it on volume. And if you're talking about grappling, yeah, Rose is a very slick grappler, but Erin Blanchfield is a very slick grappler. And I think if Erin gets top control on her, I think if Erin can kind of just, settle into the fight, take her down once, maybe early in a round, settle into the fight. I think you not really break Rose, but you can make her start questioning things. Maybe not fire off the head kick so much. Maybe not, let her hands go so easily. And with that, will lower her volume, and it'll allow you to kind of bait yourself into the pocket with her. So I'm very hesitantly going to go with Erin Blanchfield here. Would not be shocked in any way, shape, or form if Rose wins this fight. But there's something that tells me that Erin's going to be able to bully her way in this fight. She's going to be able to clinch up with her. I do think that she worked on some things with her striking. She worked on some new entrances. She's going to have some things in her bag to kind of say, look, I didn't have this against Manon. I have this against Rose. So we'll see what happens. If she does have these things and she is successful, then we're just going to continuously see the rise of Erin Blanchfield. If she comes in the same Erin Blanchfield, she still has rudimentary striking, she's still got no wrestling, then she could be stuck in the mud here. So we really don't know. But I'm going to go Erin Blanchfield. I'm going to have the trust that at her age, training with who she trains with, that I know that they're going to be prepared for this and they're going to be ready. So I'm going to go Erin Blanchfield by decision. But I haven't looked yet. I'm going to look at a submission prop. I'm definitely going to go look at a submission prop later on in the week, and I want to see if there's some real juicy odds on that. I might take a little flyer on that. All right, next fight, we got Derek Lewis and Denise. Look, I'll say this now, and I'll say this over and over again. I don't care who Derek Lewis fights. I don't care if he fights John Jones. I don't care if he fights Stipe Miocic. I don't care if he fights Daniel Cormier. I don't care who he fights. You can never be confident in a Derek Lewis fight. You just can't. Like, you can't. Like, I don't care how technical a guy is. If you're fighting Derek Lewis, it only takes your chin to be in the wrong spot at the wrong time. Does not mean Derek Lewis is a good fighter. Does not mean he's better than any of these guys. Like, we know technically John Jones is far superior. Stipe is far superior. Daniel Cormier is far superior. And the chances are 9 out of 10 times all these guys destroy him. Especially if he can't. But if he finds this spot on you, there's not a human skull that can take a clean shot from him and walk forward. So anytime you have a Derek Lewis fight, you have to be very wary picking the other side. Listen, when he fought Alexander Volkov, right? I remember in my article, I still remember this because it was so, how do you forget it? He fought Alexander Volkov, and I think I was the only person on Derek Lewis. And everyone was like, why are you on Derek Lewis? Why are you on Derek Lewis? Volkov's so much longer. He's going to kill him, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And I just kept telling people, look, there's no doubt in my mind that Volkov is the better fighter. Not even a question. He's a far superior, better striker, better everything. But the fact of the matter is he's this super, super tall guy, and Derek Lewis needs 15 minutes just to come underneath to catch him with something. That's all he needs. And that tree is going to fall. So, and in my article, I wrote, Derek Lewis, and what did I say at the end? I go, because it only takes one shot. So he was getting beaten from pillar to post the whole fight. I mean, literally from pillar to post, he was getting destroyed the whole fight. With 5 seconds left in a fight, he gets underneath, he lands one shot and knocks him out. So that's what I mean. You could be confident all you want in anybody fighting Derek Lewis, but the fact of the matter is if your chin is at the wrong spot, at the wrong time, on the wrong day, you all that work was good for nothing. So you got to be very careful with a Derek Lewis fight. When you look at Denise, listen, I think he's an athletic heavyweight. I do. I think he's an athletic heavyweight. He's on a 3-fight winning streak. Beat Neves, beat Austin Lane, which obviously is aging a little bit better now because of him beating Rebellis. But let's talk about that too. I've been saying the whole Rebellis train. I said this guy will be out of the UFC by January, and they just cut him. And now you got to remember all the people. I want you guys to literally, I don't care if they're paid content providers, if they're free, remember all the people that were on Rebellis to Spain. Remember that. because it's only a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 3 months ago, when all these people thought, oh my God, this guy's nasty, he's Taekwondo. Remember all the people that were all over him. And then when I told you this dude will be cut, this dude is absolutely horrific. He's a horrific heavyweight. And look, now he's cut. So, and then he came back, and believe it or not, the fight that impressed me, not so much, but I think it was more, Williams just didn't look good in that fight. But Deniz won that fight. He won that fight. So he's on a 3-fight losing streak. So by all rhymes and reasons, like if you look at these guys on film, absolutely Deniz should win this fight. He's faster. He's got better hands, better kickboxer. Something tells me Derek Lewis is going to catch him. I don't know why. And Derek Lewis, by all rhymes and reasons, really shouldn't. I mean, this guy's record is horrendous as of late. He beat Nascimento. He lost to Almeida. He beat De Lima. He lost to Spivak. Lost to Pavlovich. Lost to Tiavasa. Beat Daukas. Lost to Cyril Gane. I mean, his record is 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's 3-5 in his last 8. 3-5 in his last 8. So, I mean, he's on a losing record in his last 8. UFC will never cut this guy until he wants to retire because he's good. He's good for the sport. People love Derek Lewis. Something tells me that he's going to catch him in this fight. Don't know why. It's not a technical thing with me. I'm not going to sit here and say, well, because he could do this, because he could do that. I'm just going to tell you guys to wait for it. Just wait for it. Deniz is going to come out. He's going to look sharp. We know that Derek Lewis is very, very tender to the body. You can literally knock this dude out with body shots. But I will tell you this. I wouldn't be surprised if he grounds this fight. I wouldn't be surprised if he grounds Deniz, takes him to the ground, gets on top of him, grounds and pounds him, or Deniz gets him hurt, and he's backing up on the cage, and he just throws a haymaker and knocks Deniz out. I just see it happening. I don't know why. I have no rhyme and reason behind it, but I'm going to go Derek Lewis. I'm going to go Derek Lewis by knockout. All right, let's look at the rest of these, some of these fights on this card. Let's look at let's look at another heavyweight fight. I want to look at this fight. Romanov and Nascimento. What happened to Romanov, man? I mean, really, what happened to Alexander Romanov? This was a guy who, honestly, I didn't think was going to be very good, but I was like, at least this is an athletic heavyweight in the division. He comes in, he wins 1, 2, 3, 4. He wins 5 straight. Mind you, the level of competition wasn't that good. He bought Sherman, Vandera, Juan Espino, actually, but I think Juan Espino should have won that fight. I liked Juan Espino. I don't know what the hell happened to him. Beat De Lima, beat Martinez. So, listen, at the end of the day, he was beating heavyweights. He was fine. Then he fights Tybura, and believe it or not, we picked Tybura in that fight. He loses to Tybura. He loses to Alexander Volkov. He comes back. He beats Blagoy Ivanov. Then he loses to John Lemini. He's lost 3 of his last 4. He's just, I don't know what it is with him. He looks completely out of shape. I don't know. I have no idea what to expect from him. And then you got Nascimento. Lost to Derek Lewis. Beat Dontel Mays. Beat Ilar Latifi. Beat Tanner Bozer. These are good fights. And the reason why I'm saying they're good fights is not because the fighters are good, but it shows that it shows he's beating these athletic heavyweights. He's beating, Tanner Bozer is an athletic heavyweight, good boxing heavyweight, good hands. Ilar Latifi is at least a specialist with his size and his small stature, and he could really use his wrestling to get in on you. He beat him. Dontel Mays, another guy, not a good fighter, but he's an athletic. He's got some decent hands. So these are all decent wins. But then he comes across Derek Lewis, and what happens? He gets caught. So, this is an interesting fight for me. I could see Romanov winning this fight. I could see him winning the fight, but it's so hard to pick Romanov here. I have no idea. I really don't. I'm going to go with what I know. I'm going to go with Nascimento here. I just think Nascimento he's got the ability to be a little bit more mainframe in there, a little bit more athletic, move a little bit better, adapt to a different style, where Romanov, he's got to get what he wants. If he doesn't get what he wants, you put this guy on skates and you could make him chase you like a rabbit chasing a carrot. So, and his conditioning has been horrific, literally horrific. So I'm going to go Nascimento. I'm going to say inside the distance. I'm not going to say if it's going to be a knockout or a submission, but I would, if anything, it'd probably be a. So yeah, I'm just going to go Nascimento inside the distance. But like I said, it's the heavyweights. You got to be careful. All right, let's do one more. What other ones catching my fancy a little bit? Let's talk about Munoz and Zahabi. That's a really good fight. That's a really, really good fight. You know, those of you guys that have been following me for a long time, you know that Faris Zahabi is, to me, one of the most brilliant guys in MMA. I've been saying this for years and years and years and years. And I always said, like, if I can have a sit down with one guy in MMA, as far as like a coach or a trainer, it'd be the tale of two men. It'd be John Danaher or Faris Zahabi. There's just something about these guys. These guys actually have rhymes and reasons and philosophies behind what they do. If you guys don't know who John Danaher is, John Danaher was the founder of the Death Squad. He was actually a purple belt at one time under Renzo Gracie, when Renzo Gracie had to leave for a while and left him in charge of his school as a purple belt. And he was the one who kind of injected leg locks into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. While everybody was ignoring the lower extremities, he viewed it differently. He saw that, look, like, we have all this down low. Why aren't we utilizing it? So he was the one who kind of really brought leg locks and the leg game into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And his philosophies are just amazing. And the same thing with Faris Zahabi. If you ever listen to him talk and you ever hear about his philosophies, and he's very well read and very well spoken, he injects that all into his philosophies of fighting. So here he has his brother. Now, I understand that you can't take Amin Zahabi and say, well, you know, it's got to be good because it's his brother. No, it doesn't work like that. I mean, look at Peyton Manning and Eli Manning. I mean, Eli Manning won a Super Bowl, great, but he was nothing compared to Peyton Manning. And you can say that about a lot of athletes. I mean, there's a lot of athletes out there, even actors. Look at Sylvester Stallone and Frank Stallone. You got Sylvester Stallone, who was a megastar, and you got Frank Stallone, who fucking sings doo-wop in soda pop shop somewhere. You know, so you can say that about, there's always that one brother who's like really, really well-versed, and then the other one's kind of in the shadow with certain things. And I mean, Zahabi is he's a good fighter, but you can't compare his fighting just because of his brother. You know, and then, but if you look at him, I mean, he's on a 4-fight win streak. He looks good. He looks like he's really dialing into all his brother's philosophies. He usually fights like once a year. Like, he's not an active fighter. You could see it's not like he's pushing for a title shot. He's not calling anybody out. He's just there fighting. He's there fighting. He's there winning. And the recipe is working for him. And maybe it's his brother telling him, don't say nothing. We're just going to come in here, you know, once a year, once every 10 months, we're going to win a fight, we're going to leave. We're going to see where it takes us from there. Don't be calling people out. Don't be calling your shot. We're going to fly under the radar. We're going to make people want to fight us. We're going to make people overlook us. Not the approach I would take, but could be that approach, because I could see his brother doing something like that. So it looks very, very good. Pedro Munoz, on the other hand, what do we love about Munoz? We don't love his record. Munoz lost to Kyle Phillips. He lost to Marlon Vera. He lost to Chris Gutierrez. I mean, he beat Chris Gutierrez. He lost to, so he technically lost 5 of his last 6 fights. It's been a fall from grace from him, but you have to look at his resume. He lost to Aldo. He lost to Dominic Cruz. He lost to Sean O'Malley. He beat Chris Gutierrez, which is a really good fight. Lost to Marlon Vera. He lost to Kyler Phillips, which that fight isn't aging that well right now. But look at all the guys he's losing to, and they're all decisions. Nobody's finishing them. Nobody's submitting them. No one's running away with the fight. But he's losing these fights. Then he beat Jimmy Rivera after that. Then he lost to Frankie Edgar. He lost to Aljamain Sterling. So all the guys he's losing to, I mean, former champion Aljamain Sterling, former champion Frankie Edgar, former champion Jose Aldo, former champion Dominic Cruz, current champion Sean O'Malley. He's losing to all top shelf guys, but he is getting a little bit older. He is slowing up a little bit. He does lean on his durability way too much. He is an extremely durable guy. Finishing him is not usually in your cards. Nasty guillotine chokes, good power, and he's just a really good fighter. I think he's underperforming lately, and I think he's underperforming on paper because of the people that he's fighting, and I think Zahabi's actually overperforming. I do. I think he's actually overperforming a little bit. He hasn't fought a super high level of competition. Yeah, he beat Bassarat, but then after that, Orichalang, Tercios, Draco Rodriguez, he's not beating these guys like a Pedro Munoz. So I think this is a fight where everything the earth kind of corrects itself, and I think Pedro Munoz wins this fight. I don't know if he's going to finish him, but I think he gets back on the board here. So that's going to be my official pick. It'll be Pedro Munoz. I want to say inside the distance, but I'm just going to say by decision. I'd love to say like guillotine or something. We'll see what happens. But anyway, if you want the rest of the picks, there's 14 fights on this card. It's going to be a very big card. Obviously, you get NFL for free with that, which obviously, like I said, we've been doing very well with NFL. We've been doing great with MMA too, but we had this one bad week. But other than that, we've been on a very good streak. We hit 2 plus 700s a couple weeks ago. We had a good week the week before, and this one we took a little bit of a hit.
Hello, all. The Queen of Violence is back for the lock pick of the week. This week we move over to the women's flyweight division with JJ versus Lipski. Lipski came into the UFC with a ton of steam and carrying the name the Queen of Violence. However, she really hasn't lived up to that moniker. She has made some small strides, but not enough to really feel comfortable with. And she takes on JJ, who will be fighting on her home soil and really looking to put a stamp in the division, which makes her a real player. And I think her wrestling and bully-like tendencies will be a little bit too much for Lipski here. And because there can only be one Queen of Violence here, give me JJ by decision at -110.
But we got it back with football. So if you do join, you get MMA, you get the pod, you get the live streams, you get the Discord, you get everything involved in that. And then no matter what happens on Saturday night, you come back for Sunday. You got the roster bully tool, contrarian corner, the whole team's bets. And we either add to the cushion there or we get the money back. So come check us out, themadlabmma.com, and I will see you later.